Melvin, what context or story about you do I need to know in order to understand why you're a CFO?
I would say probably the reason is because I like numbers. Intuitively, numbers, I just get them, they come to me. Opposite of that would be like spelling and grammar where I struggle. So I knew that I wanted to do something that I kind of just had the natural ability, that felt natural and that I got and was relatively easy compared to something that, I struggle with.
I think we're total opposites because I am a total letters guy.
Really?
Like words, spelling bee, Wordle is like my favorite game right now because I just kill it every time. But that's interesting that you sort of know that numbers is your strong suit instead of letters.
So for you, like you probably can just look at a word and say, I know that that's misspelled, right? Like you just get it or understand that.
Yeah.
Or like can just spell it off the top of your head maybe. Where like for me, I struggle in that aspect, but with numbers, like I kind of just get it, like somebody can say, what's this percentage of a number? And I can ballpark it in my head and get close just because, you kind of intuitively or innately just see it, It's hard to, I guess, explain for lack of a better word, but I would assume it's kind of the same for you on the spelling side. If you just are naturally gifted in that way, then you kind of just get it and understand it, and it's hard to explain.
For me, it started pretty early. Like ever since elementary school, I was always great at English and writing. Those subjects were my strong suits.
Yeah.
And I knew for a fact that subjects like math and science were not my thing. What was that like for you?
I would say the exact opposite. So we'd have made a good team where if we'd have could have helped each other out. For me, math and science were strong. English and spelling and grammar I struggled with. And so, I had to work to make sure I didn't make mistakes in that area. Whereas in science and math, it just came more natural.
So you knew from a pretty early age that those were your strengths.
Absolutely, yeah.
So fast forward to now, you've been a CFO for a number of years now. Finance is your thing. Do you think anyone can become a CFO, or does it take a certain type of person?
I would say it definitely takes a certain type of person. And there's kind of twofold in that answer. One is you should and need to be good in math and have a good understanding of concepts and financial concepts. I mean, if you struggle with that, I think it would be detrimental to the position, and it would be difficult to adequately fulfill the position. The other piece of that I would say would be leadership. So if you're not someone who enjoys leading people, if you're not someone who enjoys being with people, helping others achieve goals, whether that be professionally or through their personally or for the organization's sake, then that would be difficult to, I think, do the job well. So you certainly need both of those aspects.
I want to dive into that leadership quality that you just mentioned. If someone listening to this episode was trying to pursue a career in business or finance, what skills do they need to develop in order to have success?
I would say one of the best things that I've learned and continue to refine is we use here at the Bayou the color wheel, which is the various colors like red, green, blue, yellow. There's also the disc model, which is essentially the same thing as just letters. And so that kind of, you can take an aptitude test and that kind of identifies where people are, like what they're more inclined to be, how they handle situations, just in a general sense, what type of person they are. And so as an example, somebody who is a blue or a C on the disc, they're very detail oriented, like to have check boxes and check them off, great with organization, those type of skills. So identifying one, who you are, and knowing what your strengths are is very helpful. But two, if you can see that in other people, then I think that'll definitely help you be a better leader because you know how to approach them. You know what approaches work and what approaches don't work. You know what I mean? So if you can approach somebody and you know, say what their color wheel is, and hey, they're a yellow. A yellow is a person who enjoys engaging with others, is a people person, enjoys being around people. Then that'll give you a certain tactic to use, to help lead them, to get buy-in from them, versus say if it was a blue like we talked about, who's very detail-oriented. So I think that makes a difference.
Can I ask you what color you are?
Yeah, I'm primarily red and yellow. So red is kind of the like hard charging, dominant, goal-oriented, wants to get things done. And the yellow, like I said, is people person, enjoys being with people and hanging out, having fun. We talked about the blue. The blue is detail-oriented. I do have some blue in me. And then C is more of the compassionate side for folks, caring what other people think about and how they feel and making sure that, they're included, they feel comfortable, those type of traits. So those are the four, and I'm primarily red and yellow.
I've never taken that test before, but based on the way you're describing some of the colors, I think I would be a yellow.
Yeah.
I am very people-oriented, social, like socially
I
driven.
could see that just by doing the podcast.
Yeah,
Like interested in other people's stories, that would be a yellow.
that's good. So what would be my kryptonite then? Because usually certain characteristics or certain personalities have weaknesses. So if we're saying that I'm a yellow, what would be some of my weaknesses to be aware of?
So I would say really it doesn't matter what the color is. It's really the weakness I find, my experience has been, no matter what color you are, the weakness is whenever it's taken too far or applied in the wrong situation, right? As a red, it can be very good to be hard charging and dominant and get things done. And there is an application where that works great. But there are also applications where it's like, that's not the best way to move forward, and it can be more damaging using that. So the same may be true on the yellow specifically as an example, where a lot of times, yellows have charisma and they can make friends easy, and, they don't know a stranger. And that's certainly all great qualities, right? But applied in the wrong situation, that could be something that's bad. I mean, you take a kid, my son is a yellow and likes people. And as a small child, we had to be careful because he didn't know a stranger. So he would go up and talk to anybody, which is fine, and it's not bad in and of itself. It's just one of those things where it's like you want to make sure it's in the right context. So, that's kind of the irony I find, is that our greatest strength is often our greatest weakness whenever we apply it in the wrong situation.
I recently interviewed Amanda Campbell, who is the COO of a local family business, and she told me something that really stuck with me. She said, it gets real lonely when you're at the top. How true is that for someone in your position as a CFO?
So I've done this similar situation in the oil field for about 18, 19 years. And I would say I could see it more in my boss, so he owned the company and he was, the proverbial buck stopped with him, right? And, with Sean, the same is true as far as, like, he's the final decision maker as far as what goes on with the church. And I think that rings a little bit of truth in the sense of, you never know what that burden or what the weight is until you're in that position, as far as, okay, I'm the final call and whatever I say is going to happen. And, there's not always a handbook that says this is the right call, this is the one to make. So there's difficult decisions sometimes. And not everybody has necessarily all the same information that you might have. So that kind of further compounds things where people are like, man, why did they do that? Well, maybe there was information that, that person didn't know. So I would say there's a ring of truth to it. It does help if you can lean on one another. So I find that our leadership team is very strong. We're friends outside of work, and I think that definitely makes a difference and helps to ease some of that pressure that you might feel with, hey, we're making this decision. Is it the right one?
Can you share a personal challenge with me from any point in your career, whether it was the oil industry, which we all know is a very tough industry to be in, or from where you're at currently with your job? Can you share a personal story of a challenge that you faced or a difficult decision that you had to make as a leader and how you navigated that situation?
There was a time whenever it was around the '08, '09 financial crisis. So like, everything turned down. It was difficult. It was a struggle. We met as a management team and were deciding what to do as far as, the future of the company, the health of the company. Do we do layoffs? Do we, everybody take a reduction in pay so we can try to keep people on board? I would say that was a very difficult time where our management team, there's a lot of avenues that you could take. There's a lot of different approaches. There's not necessarily a right or a wrong approach. And you try to weigh the pros and cons of what each of those are. And I would say that was probably a difficult time where we had to pull together, decide what we thought was the best avenue moving forward for our company. Ultimately, what we ended up doing is everybody in the company took a reduction in pay, and we cut benefits so that way we could keep people's jobs. Now, you could do it different ways. You could lay off people and, the people who remain keep benefits and keep their pay where it was. So again, there's no wrong or right answer, and there's no handbook that says this is the way you should do it. But that was a difficult time, and I would say in leadership on how do we move forward, how do we navigate.
Yeah, leadership is an interesting thing when you're not the one in charge because you're sort of looking up to the people who are in leadership. And it seems like you just always have to be perfect as a leader. I don't know if you have any, it seems like you can maybe have a interesting story to share about that idea.
I think if you're looking to be perfect, you probably missed it because I think there was only one guy that made it out perfect. So I would say that's difficult to do. I think it goes back to two things. One is maybe not everybody has all the information, so sometimes you might question, well, that's odd, or why did they make that decision? Again, maybe they had different information that you had, and so that can change your opinion. And through my experience, I've found that the organization will ultimately become or behave how they're led. So it's important that if you are a leader, your actions are noticed, what you say and do is noticed, and that carries out through the rest of the organization. And I've seen it both good and bad, where excellent leaders, you can see that throughout their organization, all the way from, in my case, working in the oil field where the owner, had great integrity, great humility, and that was carried out all the way through the organization, through every level of management and, down to the proverbial janitor. I've also seen it where the owner was in a different business in the oil field, to say it diplomatically, was unkind. And then you could see how that carried out through the organization, and the other people were unkind as well. And so again, I think that always comes back to the organization is going to behave how the leader, postures it to behave.
I want to circle back to the world of finance. Benjamin Franklin once said, "In this world, nothing can be said to be certain except death and taxes." Money has become a core part of modern life. We basically can't exist without it. But in the Bible, the Apostle Paul says, "The love of money is the root of all evil." So, how do you strike a balance between earning money and worshiping money?
Well, I think in the basis of that question, worshiping money would be the problem, right? So it says the love of money is the root of all evil, not that money itself is evil, right? Um, in my opinion, money is amoral, right? Just like a brick. A brick is amoral. It's not good, it's not bad, it just is. I mean, you could use a brick and you could build a hospital, or you could use a brick and you could hit somebody in the arm with it and break their arm. So money is, um, in a lot of instances the same. It's just a tool to be able to transfer, a good or a service into something else. Um, so I think that I believe there's truth that the root of all evil is, the love of money, but not money itself. Um, that's my thoughts. If you put anything before God, I think that's where you start to veer off, and you can run into trouble, no matter what that is, whether it's another person or money or whatever.
The reason I said balance is because it really does seem like a teeter-totter where you're either earning or you're worshiping. It's like one is ruling your life, your thought process, and it seems like I think we have like a comparison problem in America where we're so unbelievably blessed and comfortable compared to the rest of the world that we compare what we have and what we don't have to other people. Why is that such an issue with us?
I think it's probably an issue because that's the way advertisement and media kind of, posture that aspect. I mean, you see just about any kind of advertisement, it's almost always good-looking people and having fun and doing fun things. Um, I think it kind of sets you up to say, well, that's what I would want. I mean, who wouldn't want that? Which I don't think is a bad thing necessarily to want that. But I think the nature of the game is set up where we're led to a comparison of, well, this person has this or I have that. And I think it was in a recent series that we did here at church. I want to say it was Griff was the one who was preaching it, and had said, comparison by nature is bad, though. It's a bad thing because ultimately you have to be the best in the world to not have somebody that's not above what you are in whatever it is. I mean, whether you want to be the strongest guy, well, you need to be the strongest one in the world, or there's always somebody better than you. If you want to be the fastest guy, you have to be the fastest in the world. If you want to be the richest, you have to be the richest in the world until you're at the top. That's a pretty high bar to set whenever there's 8 billion people. So I don't know. I think by the nature of our society, it's kind of set up, for comparison. So I think that's why you see it so much in here in America. In other societies, I think there's a lot less comparison, and people live simple lives and are happy.
If someone is either struggling with earning money or they're struggling with worshiping money, what are some practical steps that people can take today to overcome those things?
The first thing is that money is a tool, and it's not something to be idolized, but it's something that gives you options. It can always be difficult to balance out. Do I work harder or longer hours or more hours and I can earn more money? But I think everything in life there should be some balance, right? So if the pursuit of trying to earn more money is causing problems elsewhere in your life, then that's probably a good signal that, hey, maybe I'm spending too much time in this particular quadrant of trying to earn money, versus, you have a good balance with whether that's family or work or, doing fun things or whatever, or just, having a relationship with Christ or finding a home church and all of the various aspects that make up our lives. I don't know if that's a practical step, but to me that's kind of a guideline that if any one of those is causing issues with the other aspects of your life, that's probably a good boundary or notice or warning to say, hey, maybe this area is, focusing too much on that area.
Do you think much about crypto?
Yeah, I like crypto. I think it's an interesting technology. It's something that's different, and it's new, so it interests me.
I wanted to get your thoughts on that topic because it seems like you come from a very traditional finance world. You got your MBA 20 years ago.
Approximately,
Early
yes. Yeah, that's
2000s?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fast forward to now, and crypto, Bitcoin, all these new things are kind of disrupting the finance world. So I was curious as to your thoughts on crypto and the future of finance as it looks.
I think it's definitely going to change things. I'm always interested whenever you have something that's a disruption to the market because kind of with my entrepreneurial hat on, you look at it and you're like, oh wow, there's money to be made there because it's disrupting the market. But technology has a tendency to do that, right? So you take any innovation that has completely changed the way we do things, it disrupts the market, and I just kind of find it fascinating of all the auxiliary markets that'll pop up because of that. You think like the iPhone, right? So Apple disrupted the market whenever we went from a traditional phone to, hey, here's basically a computer in your hand that can do so much more than just talk, right? And then you think about what are all the different markets that evolved and came out of the fact that changed, the way they changed the way we use a phone. I mean, all the way from music, and having earbuds, to all of the different pieces that you put on your phone, whether that's a case to protect it or, a handle to have on it. All of those different things wouldn't exist in the same way had Apple not disrupted the market the way that they did, right? You didn't have all the handles and the different cases and different things on the flip phones before Apple came out. And so I think crypto will be a lot of the same, right? It's a disruption to the market. It's different, and it's kind of, interesting and exciting to see how's it all going to play out, how's it going to change the market, and what's going to happen.
How long do you think crypto is going to be sort of a taboo word? Because it seems like the whole finance world, there's a good bit of confusion, there's a good bit of mystery in terms of like stocks and bonds and all these different, there's so many layers to finance. And then crypto just comes out of left field and just becomes even more taboo, even more mysterious than the traditional world.
In my opinion, I think that it's already changed because if you go back whenever Bitcoin first came out, it was about 10 years ago, somewhere around there. Hardly anybody knew anything about it, just kind of the people that were on the leading edge of into that kind of thing understood it or knew about it. And you look today and, CNBC flashes the Bitcoin price and Ethereum price on their tickers like they do with other stocks. Whenever I saw that, I was like, wow, that in their own way, the traditional finance really legitimized the crypto by the fact that now they're going to show prices and track how is it doing, just as they would a traditional stock. So to me, that was kind of a pivotal turning point where it's like, well, whether they want to or not, traditional finance is, I was going to say embrace it, and maybe they're not embracing it, but it's, again, whenever something disrupts the market, you just can't ignore it. It's going to play out how it plays out, and if you fight against it, it can often be a losing battle.
I want to end our conversation with one final question.
Yeah.
I asked your son Tyler what question I should ask you.
Oh, gosh.
And this is what he said. How do you collect money from a client or customer who doesn't want to pay?
That's interesting that that's the one he picked. So for my 19 years or so, that was part of my job. And generally, if everything goes well, I wouldn't have to call a customer and collect money. I got involved whenever things didn't go well, right? The client isn't paying, the customer isn't paying. I think it's part of it is definitely learning people skills. So it helps to, as I mentioned, know your colors or the disc, and to help evaluate what type of person it is. That's definitely effective. I would say the other piece of that is, I looked at it as I had a job to do. My end goal was to try to get us paid on something, a good or a service that we had provided. I wanted us to get paid regardless of really the path I had to take to get that done. And so for me, removing emotion out of that process really helped a lot. So not getting upset with whatever they said, or whatever tactic they tried, it certainly helps. I'm not saying I was always successful in that, because it can be emotional, but I think as best you can, removing that emotion and just saying, here's how we're going to do things. Maybe the last piece of it is I would kind of systematically walk them down a path, right? Like, I'll see if you're trustworthy and we'll agree on something, and did you do what you said you were going to do? If you did, then that further extended trust, and we would, set another date and another payment and another amount, and do you hit that? If you didn't, then now I know, okay, well, I can't trust you, and so then I have to take a different, set of actions. But always walking towards what are we going to do to get paid, and sometimes it's as simple as, okay, just, if you want to give me your attorney's name, I'll have our attorney contact your attorney, and we'll settle it in court. So I would say knowing the person, keeping emotion out of it, and then kind of, going down a general systematic approach that you've developed through years of doing it, would definitely lead towards success.
So I should not roll up with a SWAT team.
It's probably not the best tactic, no. In not in the legal sense, for sure not. Probably good on the intimidation factor, but ultimately, they have to be willing to give you the money. And sometimes they can't, and that's understandable. I mean, if you can't, then you can't, no matter what you do. I mean, you roll up with a SWAT team, I don't have the money, so what are you going to do? And in those situations, it kind of makes it cut and dry. We'll just go through the court system, and there's a process to handle it. So in that sense, that's kind of fairly easy route. Like, you don't have the money, we'll go through the courts. They're going to sell all the assets you have, and we'll get paid what we're going to get paid. It's more difficult whenever we know that you have the money and the ability, and now you're choosing not to. So that's a different approach that you have to take to. I can't force you to sign your name on a check or for you to wire me the money. So I have to ultimately convince you to do so. So that becomes a little more difficult.
I think Tyler gave you a pretty deep question.
It was good. I'm surprised that he picked that. That's not what I would have thought that he would have picked, but that's a good question.
I feel like we could do just an entire conversation just about something like that.
I mean, man, look, I've I've collected a lot of money over the years for a lot of different, through a lot of different customers, and I've had all kind of experiences, some that I would have to tell you whenever we don't have the cameras on, and because it's a little more explicit, but some go really well and have a good happy ending. But yeah, it's interesting the variation that you get between customers, and some willing to pay and some not willing to pay.
I appreciate you coming on and sharing your wisdom about finance and leadership. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.